Hey everyone, Jay here. Welcome to another episode of Spro Tips. And today we've got a question from one of the forums that I noticed here. And Josh writes, "Hello, I'm looking for some advice or shared experience. I'm roasting a Costa Rica honey process and experiencing a higher temp first crack with this year's crop. I'm assuming density is higher than years past of the same coffee. My measurement of density, weight, volume equals 0.76. A little bit on the denser side. Roast profiles from years past, I was achieving first crack around 385 degrees Fahrenheit. However, this year, I'm getting first crack around 395 to 405. I prefer to roast very light, in which my finish would be 403 to 406. However, this does not give any development time. Without the desired development, it still cups well, and I'm happy with the coffee, but I'm just curious if someone has experienced anything of the same and what you have done to accommodate a longer development. For reference, I'm roasting on a Diedrich IR12, and I'm starting the roast at 430 degrees. Alright, so I think that maybe one of the things to think about with coffee roasting is not necessarily to always try to keep it in very specific types of temperature. Like, we want to see certain first cracks to be around a certain time, but it doesn't always have to be that way, and it doesn't always have to finish exactly at the same temperature point year to year. What we try to look for is more stylistic consistency. So if we're trying to roast a coffee to a certain, like, let's say light roast, we're looking at it from terms of we want to start our roast, we want to have our first crack, and we want to finish our roast X amount of time past first crack, right? And the way that you actually look at first crack can be different. Some people like to look at first crack from the very first pops. Some people like to consider first crack from the point where it's really starting to be more popcorny sounding. In my case, I like to look at first crack at the end. So when the first crack is really starting to wane, that's when we start to think about time. Okay, so like let's just say like first crack is starting to end, and I'm listening to it, and I start to think, okay, if I want a light roast with it, maybe I'll go a maximum of 20 seconds out from it. But I'm also using the rest of my senses, the sense of smell to smell the coffee as I'm pulling it from the dryer. Also looking at the coffee that's in the dryer to see, is this the roast degree that I'm looking for? Is this the color that we're trying? Smelling, observing, listening, and then determining when we should really stop. Because one thing to keep in mind is that coffee is an agricultural product, and even though we're trying to get the specifications of the coffee to be the same, it is a different crop. It is different every week, every year, every month, and so it's always going to change. So while we have kind of guidelines that we use, there's no steadfast rule that says it must start here, it must end here, and these are the different waypoints that it must hit. So try to think of things with roasting as a stylistic approach, and I think you'll find better results and easier roasting in that. And just make sure that you're taking all the notes along the way so that you can record all of your times and temperatures, and then when you're cupping the next day, you're able to look back and say, okay, well, this is what I'm tasting. Maybe it was impacted here. And especially if you have previous roasts from weeks past, you can look at those notes, look at those roast logs, and start to see, is this coffee being roasted the way that I want it to be represented? So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments down below. Love to hear what you think about this. Also, thank you very much for your support. Really appreciate you supporting the channel. And if you have any desire to support the channel a little bit more, feel free to buy some of our coffee, sprocoffee.com. We'd be happy to send you some coffee that's great. And buying coffee from us, you help support our channel. All right, so next time, have a great one.